Hollywood is a world full of glamour, fame, and larger-than-life personalities. But behind the glitz, there are stories of rivalries, betrayals, and grudges that few people ever hear about. One of the most shocking revelations in recent years has shaken fans and insiders alike. Tommy Lee Jones, the iconic actor known for his stoic intensity and commanding presence, reportedly harbored an intense dislike for one particular co-star, more than anyone else in his career. From Men in Black to No Country for Old Men, Tommy Lee Jones has earned a reputation for professionalism, precision, and dedication to his craft. But while he has worked with some of the finest actors in the business, it turns out there was one person he couldn't stand. Behind the cameras, away from the smiling press photos and staged red carpet events, the tension was palpable, and those on set couldn't ignore it. The reason for his hatred is even more surprising than the feud itself. It wasn't rooted in a single moment of on-set conflict, nor a minor disagreement. It was something far deeper, tied to personality clashes, unspoken resentments, and perhaps even professional jealousy. Friends, co-stars, and insiders have revealed details that paint a shocking picture of Hollywood life behind the scenes. A world where talent and temper can collide with explosive results. For fans who have always admired Tommy Lee Jones's calm, no-nonsense demeanor, this revelation changes everything. It's a story of pride, conflict, and the human side of one of Hollywood's most respected actors, a side rarely seen, but impossible to ignore. Tommy Lee Jones has long been celebrated as one of Hollywood's most formidable actors. His performances are precise, commanding, and unforgettable, whether he's playing a rugged lawman, a cynical detective, or a morally complex character. But as anyone who has worked with him knows, his intensity isn't limited to the screen. Behind the cameras, Tommy has a reputation for being exacting, demanding, and at times, unyielding, qualities that have fueled both his legendary performances and the conflicts he's had with co-stars. The tension began subtly, almost imperceptibly, during the filming of one of his earlier projects. On set, Tommy's dedication to authenticity often clashed with actors who didn't share his work ethic or attention to detail. Those who witnessed it recall moments of icy glares, curt remarks, and an almost palpable disdain when he felt someone wasn't meeting his high standards. To him, acting was sacred. Any perceived sloppiness or lack of commitment was intolerable. It wasn't just professional differences that created friction. Personality played a huge role. Tommy Lee Jones is famously private and stoic, a man who values respect, discipline, and honesty above all else. He has little patience for egos, pretension, or anyone he perceives as undermining the work. In the case of the co-star he would later come to despise, insiders say the clash was immediate. On the very first day of filming together, small disagreements and differing approaches to their craft ignited a spark of tension that would escalate over time. Crew members remember an almost electric atmosphere on set whenever the two were in the same scene. Rehearsals became battlegrounds of subtle power struggles. A missed line or a slight improvisation could trigger Tommy's visible frustration. To many, it seemed like a personal vendetta, though for Tommy, it was about something far deeper, a profound sense of artistic integrity and respect. He didn't merely dislike sloppiness. He loathed anything that threatened the quality of the work. Offset interactions did little to ease the tension. While Tommy typically avoids drama, this particular relationship became an exception. He was polite when necessary, but there was an unmistakable distance, a wall between him and the co-star that even the director struggled to navigate. Meetings, rehearsals, and even casual conversations carried an undercurrent of unease. Those who observed it noted that the animosity was unlike anything they had seen with Tommy before. By the time filming ended, it was clear that the experience had left a lasting mark. What began as professional disagreements had grown into a personal dislike, one so strong that it would shape how Tommy spoke about the co-star for years to come. Colleagues who asked about the feud were met with brief, often icy answers, leaving the industry buzzing with speculation. This was the beginning of a story few outsiders knew, a tale of ambition, perfectionism, and the darker side of Hollywood relationships. It revealed a side of Tommy Lee Jones rarely seen. A man whose standards were as high as his talent, and whose dislike for betrayal, laziness, or insincerity could turn even the most talented actor into a target of his scorn. As filming progressed, the tension between Tommy Lee Jones and his co-star grew increasingly visible to everyone on set. It wasn't dramatic in the traditional Hollywood sense, no shouting matches or on-set meltdowns, but the subtle coldness, clipped conversations, and deliberate avoidance were impossible to ignore. Crew members described a kind of silent war, two highly skilled professionals locked in a clash of personalities, each unwilling to yield, each determined to assert control over their space. Tommy's reputation as a perfectionist was well known, but this was different. According to insiders, his dislike went beyond a mere preference for precision. He was frustrated by what he perceived as a lack of respect for the craft, behavior that, to him, bordered on negligence. Every missed cue, offbeat delivery, or casual improvisation by this co-star became a reminder that, in his eyes, the work was being compromised. Over time, what began as professional irritation hardened into genuine animosity. Those close to the production recalled several instances where Tommy would confront the co-star quietly but firmly. There were no public arguments. His style was to address issues privately, but his sharp tone and penetrating gaze left no room for misinterpretation. He didn't need to yell, a crew member explained. You could feel the tension just by him standing there. If he didn't like something, you knew it immediately. These moments, small but frequent, contributed to a steadily growing rift between the two actors. Off camera, the atmosphere was no less strained. Breaks, meals, and hallway conversations became exercises in diplomacy. Other actors often stepped carefully around them, trying not to spark conflict. Directors found themselves mediating more than directing, while production assistants learned quickly to avoid being caught in the crossfire. For Tommy, it wasn't about personal grudges, it was about principle. For the co-star, it increasingly felt personal. Interestingly, the feud wasn't entirely one-sided. The co-star had their own frustrations. They felt scrutinized, judged unfairly, and constantly compared to Tommy's exacting standards. It created a cycle. Tommy's criticism prompted defensiveness, which in turn deepened his disdain. Insiders note that this dynamic became a defining feature of the shoot, influencing not only the performances, but also the morale on set. Despite the friction, the project was completed successfully. Professionalism prevailed, and audiences never saw the tension behind the scenes. Yet for Tommy, the experience left a mark that lingered long after filming wrapped. Friends say he would occasionally reference the co-star with unmistakable bitterness, describing them as the most difficult person he had ever worked with. It was clear that the resentment had gone beyond the project itself. This was personal. By the time awards season arrived, Tommy Lee Jones's disdain had become something of an open secret within Hollywood circles. Colleagues and journalists whispered about the feud, but few knew the full story. To outsiders, it seemed almost shocking that someone as composed and professional as Tommy could harbor such deep feelings of dislike. But those who had been on set understood. This wasn't about ego or jealousy or petty drama. For Tommy, it was about respect, integrity, and the way someone's presence could shake the foundation of his craft. A man whose standards were absolute, whose patience finite, and whose contempt for dishonesty or mediocrity could overshadow even his famous charm. And as Hollywood continued to marvel at his talent, the story of this feud quietly became one of the most talked about behind-the-scenes sagas, one that would shape how Tommy Lee Jones approached collaborations for years to come. Even after the cameras stopped rolling, the tension between Tommy Lee Jones and his co-star didn't simply vanish. The feud left a lasting impression on everyone involved, from directors and crew members to fellow actors who witnessed the quiet but palpable animosity. While the film itself achieved critical acclaim behind the scenes, the experience had created a rift that would linger for years. Tommy's dislike was no secret within industry circles. Insiders noted that he would avoid working with this co-star in future projects whenever possible. Casting directors and producers, aware of his feelings, often had to navigate delicate situations when the two were considered for the same film. Tommy, they say, had a zero-tolerance policy for people he couldn't respect professionally, and this particular individual topped that list. To him, it wasn't personal in the conventional sense. It was about integrity, standards, and trust. If someone couldn't meet those expectations, they simply weren't worth his collaboration. Meanwhile, the co-star was aware of Tommy's feelings, though the full extent of his disdain only became clear over time. While some colleagues attempted to mediate, it was evident that there was little room for reconciliation. Social interactions became strained, interviews carefully scripted to avoid mentioning each other, and public appearances designed to prevent awkward encounters. What started as disagreements over work style evolved into a complex psychological dynamic, a mutual awareness of unresolved tension that never truly dissipated. Interestingly, the crew often reflected that the intensity of Tommy's feelings was matched by his commitment to professionalism. While he may have harbored strong personal dislike, he never allowed it to interfere with the quality of the project. Scenes were executed flawlessly, deadlines met, and his performances remained as compelling as ever. But for those who observed closely, the undercurrent of resentment was unmistakable. Subtle glances, terse responses, and a quiet form of disapproval that hung in the air. The long-term impact of this animosity also affected Hollywood's perception of Tommy Lee Jones. Known as a consummate professional, he suddenly seemed more human, flawed, and capable of strong personal judgments. Fans and critics alike began to understand that even legendary actors are not immune to interpersonal friction, and that talent alone doesn't guarantee harmonious collaboration. In many ways, this feud became a cautionary tale about ego standards and the delicate balance required when working with perfectionists in high-stakes environments. Even years later, the story continues to resonate. Those who worked on the project recall Tommy's unwavering intensity, his dedication to craft, and the quiet, simmering disdain that defined his relationship with this co-star. It's a reminder that behind the glamour of Hollywood, the pressures of collaboration can bring out deeply human and sometimes unpleasant reactions. Ultimately, Tommy Lee Jones's hatred for this co-star wasn't born out of malice, but out of a profound commitment to his own principles. It was about respect, accountability, and the belief that compromising on standards was never acceptable. And while the feud may have been private, it left an indelible mark on everyone who experienced it, cementing a story that Hollywood insiders will recount for decades to come. The feud between Tommy Lee Jones and his co-star left a lasting mark not just on their careers, but on how the actor approached his work in the years that followed. Insiders say that, although the bitterness remained, it became a valuable lesson for Tommy, a reminder of the delicate balance between professionalism and personal boundaries in Hollywood's high-pressure environment. After the project wrapped, Tommy reportedly reflected deeply on the conflict. While his dislike for the co-star never disappeared entirely, he began to understand the broader context of the tension. Some colleagues suggested that both sides had been under immense stress, with creative differences magnified by the pressures of a major production. It was a lesson in humility. Even a veteran actor of Tommy's caliber could encounter personalities that tested his patience and values. In interviews and public appearances following the project, Tommy's behavior subtly shifted. While he maintained his trademark intensity, he approached collaborations with increased awareness of human dynamics on set. He became more discerning about choosing projects and co-stars, seeking people whose professionalism aligned with his own, but also recognizing that some personality clashes were inevitable. In essence, the feud taught him how to navigate conflict with greater tact, even if he could never completely suppress his instinctive dislike. For the co-star, the experience was also formative. Colleagues noted that the individual learned to respect Tommy's high standards, recognizing that the animosity wasn't personal spite, but a reflection of Tommy's uncompromising dedication to craft. Over time, both parties went on to continue successful careers, though paths rarely crossed again. Hollywood's landscape is vast, but the memory of this conflict lingered. A cautionary tale for actors and directors alike, fans and insiders alike came to understand that even legendary performers, like Tommy Lee Jones, are not immune to human flaws and complex emotions. The story revealed that behind every calm, stoic exterior can be unspoken judgments, exacting expectations, and deep-seated resentments. It also highlighted a universal truth: perfectionism and passion, while driving greatness, can create rifts with those who don't share the same vision or work ethic. Today, Tommy Lee Jones remains one of Hollywood's most respected actors. Yet those who know the full story acknowledge that his legendary intensity comes with a cost. The feud with his co-star may have been private, but it serves as a reminder of the human side of stardom. A side where talent meets temperament, where high standards clash with personality, and where even the most accomplished individuals can harbor grudges that last a lifetime. In the end, the story of Tommy Lee Jones and this co-star is more than gossip or scandal. It's a lesson about ambition, integrity, and the complicated relationships forged in the pressure cooker of Hollywood. It's a reminder that even the greatest stars, admired by millions, are still human, capable of brilliance, conflict, and yes, even intense dislike. And for those who witnessed it all, the feud will always be a fascinating chapter in the life of one of cinema's most formidable actors.